Guys, we're back. Oceania. Man, I thought I was going to be out of this save for a little longer than I had been. I honestly thought the airport DLC was going to mess things up for quite some time, but it was about a week and a half, and now this very heavily modded save file is up and running with no problems at all. Big thanks to all the modders out there just keeping their mods up to date. It's pretty amazing, so big shout out to those guys. Hey, we are back. We're not in Dundee. We're going to continue work out in Paterson, which is a little town that we've been working on over the last couple of weeks. Maybe even a month or so we've been working on Paterson. I reckon we're going to be here for a little bit longer. I know that DLC has just dropped and you're all probably hanging out for that Dundee airport, but I'm thinking I might hold off building the airport just for a little while because we are building an airport in Mile Bay, and I was building a vanilla one within a live stream that I think I might probably turn into a couple of episodes so that we can actually finish that off. So I don't know, I kind of think that we should just hold off building one in Oceania. It might just be a bit of airport overkill, but let me know if you're super keen to see it. Just hit me up in the comments and maybe I'll fly over there pretty shortly, because I'm going to be honest, pretty excited to get to it. But I am also very excited to finish off Paterson, which only is probably a couple episodes away. Today we are going to be doing a time lapse for about half this episode, and then we'll jump into a live play about midway through so we can just do a bit of a fly around, see what we've been up to. We do build some pretty fun things in this episode. I actually work on a new town, which I didn't expect to build. I was just sort of thinking that this area of Paterson was just gonna continue as Paterson, but then the more I thought about it, the more I built in this area, I was just thinking that it wouldn't just be an extension of the town. I mean, it probably could have been, but I don't know. I think we had enough room to justify placing down something else, like another town, maybe just a little small town that's been swallowed by Paterson. I'm sure at some point they were their own little places, but over time they've just sort of merged. You know, they've just merged over here. I don't know the history of this place. Maybe it's they got like a long history of, you know, being whatever this little small town we call, and then there's Paterson has just exploded into this larger one, or maybe this town has sort of been developed as the highway has developed up and more people have been driving to Paterson over the years. I don't know, can't really figure it out. Maybe somewhere in between. But I just thought that this was a great opportunity to build something new, just because I don't think I'm going to build anything quite like this anywhere else. I want to try and make sure that all the towns that we build are completely different. They don't overlap at any stage. You know, if we build two coastal towns, I want them to be taking inspiration from two different types of Australian towns, or maybe there's a town that's very much like a town in Australia, and then there's a town that is very much like a town that you probably find in New Zealand. I pretty much go into all of my builds with that mindset. Don't build anything like you've built before, so that it does feel somewhat different when you do see it, particularly in Oceania. I really am trying to capture different types of places within not a huge amount of space. You know, these maps aren't massive, and I've chosen to build on an island. So when I build this, just have a little look and have a think. What does this place remind you of? What else could I place down here? Because as always, none of these places are finished. Paterson is going to get to a stage where it looks fairly complete by the end of this episode, but I reckon we keep adding to it. You know, I don't really want to just go tick, done, we're finished. I want to keep on adding to these places, mixing it up, adding some of the suggestions, that sort of stuff. But anyway, I don't think I've spoken about anything I've done on screen yet. I've pretty much just been working on road layouts. I am keeping it super small, not very many roads, but also the types of roads I'm using, keeping them really nice and thin because we don't have a huge amount of space. I want to make sure that we are maximizing, and plus a bit of scale. I'll probably talk a bit more about that in the live play. But the town center, I mean, it's really only one road and a couple of commercial buildings, and that's about it. I do have a fair amount of industry around here, just because it is on the outer edge of Paterson. It sort of feels like we do need a fair amount of industry out here, plus with this main road and the amount of farmland and stuff. I thought that people will be coming to Paterson, will be coming to this town to probably stock up and buy some stuff for their businesses. So that's sort of the purpose for this area. I actually just built that really, this little corner side, which I really like. This is a business that you can basically rent or hire or maybe even buy some of these construction vehicles. See lots of these around, particularly on these highways. So I thought, you know what, place one there. All we really need is one of those wavy guys, you know, the balloon guys that sort of wave all in the air. Probably need one of those guys, but I didn't have one in the collection. But I think I've seen one in the workshop. Maybe I'll grab one and stick him down there. But that's the sort of stuff that I want to be placing along that road because it is a bit of a highway. We're going to have a fair amount of businesses around there too. But now we're starting to work a bit more on some of the residential areas of this town, which I wanted to put a fair amount of detail into. So some of these houses, we are putting down a lot of decals and a lot of fences and stuff like that. Just because it's not a huge amount of space, I figured it'd be nice to just really capture the essence of a very small, quite dusty, industrial little town that's just sitting outside of a much larger town. So we are going for lots of decals. We are putting down quite a bit of surface painter as well, just so I can really change up the earth and make it look quite different. I think it is at about this point that so basically all that footage that you saw before this, all of that was built before the airport DLC and the update. And then I pretty much turned off my computer, had dinner, turned it back on, and the update was downloading. So I was like, okay, I guess I can't release that episode this weekend. So that's why there has been a little gap. But we are back and it's looking pretty good. Like nothing seems to be broken, and every single mod that I use, which is a lot, seems to be working really, really well. So, I mean, that's pretty amazing considering how many mods we are using within Oceania. It's pretty incredible because I remember a couple of years ago, if an update was to drop and you weren't ready, you could lose a save because they would really mess with some of those mods. But, you know, if some aren't updated, I know there are still a few that haven't been updated. Just be patient. You know, these modders have lives outside of modding. All of them pretty much do it as a hobby, and they do it so that we can have a much more enjoyable gaming experience, which I find pretty incredible. So just be patient if your mod hasn't been updated yet, and maybe just play a bit of vanilla in the meantime. What are we up to now? We are starting to build some of the edge of this town. So not just the edge of Paterson, but we are building the edges of this town. I want to put some agriculture, but not a huge amount. There's quite a lot of land that's designated where I'm just going to be building so much farmland. It's going to make this whole area even more bustling than it already is, which is kind of hard to believe because there's already quite a lot of trucks and vehicles and, you know, the train lines bustling. The whole place is looking pretty alive, but I think when we start building some of the actual farmland, that's going to get pretty nuts. But I'm going to call that whole area the Megalong Valley, and I think I've already done that, but I just haven't built any farmland out there yet. But it's going to be pretty amazing. And I think when we do that, we're going to have to make some really big improvements with probably a bit more of the train infrastructure and maybe some policies too, and just thinking about how we're going to get some of the cargo some of the freight from this area into Dundee, and maybe even work on the port of Dundee, which I'm really excited for. That's going to happen around the same time as we do the airport, so there's going to be a big chunk of airport and ports and all that sort of huge infrastructure sort of stuff. It's going to happen pretty close together, so it's nice working out here because it's sort of a bit more chilled, you know, just working on places like pretend KFCs and little sleepy towns. But when we get into Dundee and start working on the airport, it's going to be some pretty big episodes. But like I said, we are working on a pretend KFC. This used to be a KFC. We have now converted it to our Rip and Chicken, which is the custom brand that was made for Oceania. So that's there, which I think we have needed for a while because the trucks are driving around We've got the billboards, now we finally have the store, so that's there. And I think that's a pretty good location, right on the highway. It's not in the middle of Paterson where we have Bruce Burger and the Hungry Jacks as well as over there, but you know, this one's just sort of out in this direction, which is kind of on the way to the university. So I don't know, I think that would probably get quite a lot of people parking there and grabbing a burger pretty late at night, I reckon. And then to finish off the area around this town, I wanted to just put a bit of a fence around the train line just to make things a bit safer. Almost didn't do it because they don't always have fences, but I just felt like we needed it more for the detail, more so for the detail, less for the actual realism. And then some of these more open spaces of just nature, just putting down some shrubs. I feel like if you just got like a big chunk of open area, placing down some shrubs seems to be the thing that makes it feel a little bit more realistic. I think, I don't know, you either have like big bushy areas and then you have some open spaces, and I always think that if you're gonna have an open space but want to keep it fairly realistic and a little bit naturey, then some shrubs seem to be the thing that make it feel a little bit more realistic. And then this space over here, I'd always wanted to put some sort of strip mall, and I struggled with just the parking lot as per usual. Never really know what to do, even though I've made these about 1 million times. But I decided just to go for something a bit simpler and just have just the one road, because, you know, not a huge amount of people are probably going to use this area, so I figured we don't need a huge amount of parking lots. But that is pretty much it for the time lapse. It was a shorty. We are going to jump into a live play and work on some more stuff, because I don't think I've really properly done some stuff, so we'll have to jump into a live play, fix some stuff up, and just give you a bit more of a tour of some of the things we have been up to. The first thing I want to do in this live play is to name up our university, because at the moment it's just known as Oceania University, which is fine, but I reckon we can do a lot better than that. I did ask you guys in the last episode, I got some great name suggestions, but my favorite was by Christopher Wren, who wrote in saying that being a motorsports fan that he is, and Bathurst being the place we're taking the most inspiration for Paterson, Mount Panorama is traditionally known as Walu by the Wiradjuri people of that area. I mean, Walu basically means young man's initiation place. That is about as good as it gets for a university name, so I'm going to call it Walu University. And I reckon we save a name like Oceania University probably for Dundee. I reckon we're going to build another one out that way at some stage. Speaking of names, we definitely need a name for our new little town. I know it's super close to Paterson, but definitely deserves its own name. Maybe have a watch of this live play, and then you might get some inspiration as we fly around and get a bit of a better sense about this area. It is super small, and it's just surrounded by agriculture and industry and train lines, which I don't know if you just saw that train go by, but it's just super pretty. The town, I really wanted to be very much focused on agriculture and industry. It is situated just outside of Paterson, so I guess it has inherited a lot of industry as it is on the outer edge of the town, and it is on this highway, which obviously would have been a more recent addition to this area, as this highway has widened over time. You are crazy, mate. What are you doing? Your poor dog. Yeah, so we probably need to actually, you know what, let's change a couple of little things. There's going to be a couple of things that we're definitely going to need to change in this live play, because I haven't totally gone through and made sure everything works. I like to save this sort of work for live plays and live streams and all that sort of stuff, so that we can kind of go through and fix these things up together. I'm sure you guys usually have a pretty keen eye for this sort of stuff. Tell me if I'm missing something in particular. We'll leave that crossing there, that's fine. So it has definitely inherited a lot of industry, probably not that welcomed, to be honest. Like, a lot of stuff like this is stuff that I don't think that the town probably thinks is that nice. So it's definitely not the nicest area of Paterson for sure, and the houses, I think, really reflect that. There are a couple of nicer houses around here. These cottages are quite pretty, but a lot of them are sitting on blocks of land that have, you know, quite a lot of weeds sticking out, and With all this industry and all these trucks coming in and out of Paterson and even out of this town, I really wanted to make this place really dusty, and by using all these decals, I think you probably saw me use quite a lot of decals, a lot of surface painter, a lot of just using the ground resources too. My oil texture is just a great, yeah, it's just a great dustiness, which I like to put down in places like this, just to capture that dry earth atmosphere that Australia really has in most of its areas. So it's really not the most optimal place for agriculture, but yet we have a lot within Australia. So I did really want to try and capture that. So we are definitely doing something quite different than within Paterson. I think Paterson is definitely more focused on that small town university type of area, whereas this town is definitely trying to capture a bit more agriculture, industry, and what it's like in some of these really, really small places. So I have done a lot of detail even around some of these houses. Because this is just so small of a town, I tried really hard not to use any of the bigger roads. So the biggest road really is the road that goes through the middle of the town, through the commercial strip. Really not much of a commercial strip, but I mean that's the largest road we have. Other than that, we are using these little avenues, which you don't really notice that they're the small avenues unless you compare them to some of the other roads, or even if you were to fly into Paterson where the roads are much larger, you don't really notice. And I think that's just one of those scale things that I tend to go on a lot about. I really love trying to use scale within City Skylines, and I think building a place like this that is meant to be a small town but also a very much scaled down small town, something that I'm trying to show that it's a lot smaller than the larger town that it's within. Yeah, these little roads are definitely something that's helping out a lot. And I even took this opportunity to place down some assets that I hadn't placed down yet. They've just been sitting in my collection for a while, and I finally got to it. You know, this hotel, pretty perfect for a place like this. We've also got national tiles, and we finally placed down our Rippin' Chicken, which is our parody of KFC. So that's there. I just placed this down. I feel like we need a petrol station here, but I don't know. I don't really have any other petrol station. There's a petrol station right there. What am I doing? And you know what? That's a competitive one. We'll keep that there. How did I miss that? All right, whatever. And I mean, look at the amount of cars coming in. I mean, it is crazy. This has become such a bustling place, which is so fantastic. What we probably do need to start focusing on, and this will be in the next episode, I believe, is connecting Paterson, this little guy, and Dundee up just a bit better, because at the moment it's just the one highway. I feel like we need to make things a little bit better for people getting in and out of the city, people making that journey. I know we've got the train line, but I don't even know if that's working the way it should. I feel like we need to improve that. But I don't know, I'm getting ahead of myself. There's actually a couple more things I need to do within Paterson before we even get to something like that. So for starters, this little corner over here, I'm sort of happy with, but I just think that we need to make some sort of transition from this area to the rest of the, I guess, the bushland. I don't know, it's a bit abrupt, but I don't really know what I'm going to place here. I don't know, maybe if I use one of the brushes. These are the brushes I'm talking about, and I don't know, maybe we can just have like a bit of a lot or something here. That might sort of make a slightly better transition from all that built environments to something a little bit more wild. Yeah, I feel like even just something like this, where you can see that there's a little bit of industry out here. You've got just a couple of sheltered areas, and maybe even just with these shops here, I'm sure there's going to be some sort of boxes behind here just ready to be loaded into, or even, here we go. Yeah, maybe some, yep, that's it. That's all I needed to do. And then just to blend it in, I'm going to grab a couple of these little bushes and even just popping them around. See how we got the surface down here, and if I just sort of plop them around the corners of them, it sort of looks like weeds just around the gravel where it meets some of the grassland. I don't know, I think works a little bit better than what it was before. And then up here can be maybe just a little secret entrance into where this, there we go. So we do have this walking track that goes into the forest. I reckon some people might park their car up here and then they can venture into this walking track, which is super nice. Goes around the whole area of Paterson. And there we go. Couple of parked cars because people have obviously parked there, gone for a walk. There we go. So I think that area does look a lot better. It just blends in, even just adding in little pockets of this and even just showing that there are access points to other parts of the town, I just think works a lot better. The last thing I want to do though is I'm gonna just place down some billboards as we come into Paterson because this highway is looking pretty much done. I just think that we need to show that, you know, as we get a little bit closer to the town, you can start seeing some advertising for probably some of the things you're going to find within Paterson. So not that billboard because that is something you'd find within Dundee. We'll do Dundee Bitter. We'll do another Abbott's Onions. Now that we have a Rip and Chicken, we'll put a Rip and Chicken billboard. And I'm going to leave it at that because this is going to be the next episode. I'm going to be working on this highway and connecting Paterson to Dundee a little bit better because all around here is looking pretty nice and detailed. We've got our dam. We have our old road that goes down to Paterson, which is another little nice scenic route down that way. But as soon as we leave there, it just starts to get a little bit bland. There's no detail. I want to get in here and just make things look a lot nicer. So that's going to be the next episode. And my question to you guys is, what would you imagine you'd find on the way to Paterson from Dundee? You know, as we transition from our city, as we get into some of this more countryside, open areas of Oceania, what do you think we're going to see? I'm thinking maybe a truck stop, which has already been mentioned. We'll do a truck stop. We'll probably have another service station, but just those little hidden details we can add along the way so we can make those nice little road trip journeys. Let me know. Let me know in the comments below. But that is it for today's episode. Thank you all so much for watching. It is always very much appreciated. Big thanks to the wonderful people over on Patreon supporting the channel. Andrew Blue Moon, Matt Kelm, Alex Calvert, Ricardo Coparo, Eckhart's Ladder, Matthew Harrison, Spencer Hitchings, Irfan, Aptorixic, Tjorvins, Ian Bazantnote, Timothy Haitayan, and Jake. Guys, thank you all so much for your support, and I'll catch you all on the next one. Bye!